Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And today, before I get to my main point of the video, which is to talk about how you as a GM should not basically cripple your players' creative initiative in RPG actual play, I'm going to start with a long and rambling introduction, as is my usual manner, where I end up talking about pop culture, the Watchmen, magic, Western society, and what ruined it, and all kinds of other stuff. So, if you're only here to hear about the RPG part, we're probably only going to be getting there maybe after the first 20 to 30% of the video. So you might want to try to skip forward. Now, if you find all that other stuff really interesting, and maybe it's the real reason you watch me, then you better stick around. You know, people have asked me, why can't you just get to the point, Pundit? Why can't you just do the video about the thing and not end up rambling off in side directions and you know, changing topics the way you do and all that? Well, I think there's a very simple explanation, right? I'm an Albertan. And I studied, I learned how to be a humanities guy in the same university where Jordan Peterson went to learn how to be a humanities guy. So I think it's something about that university. You know, it also produced Ezra Levant. So yeah, Ezra Levant is another guy, if you watch Rebel Media, that when he does his monologues, of course, he's much more crafted than I am. I'm not going to pretend to deny that, but he's also a guy that will sometimes end up going on rambling and on detours, especially if he's going off script. And I don't use a script, right? I just think about what I'm going to say. So the thing is, I'm going to start out by telling you, I read an article the other day about how this dude Linda Hoff, the creator of the new Watchmen TV series, has said that he believes Alan Moore cursed him. Alan Moore, as you know, is a practicing magician, as you probably know, is a practicing magician, the creator of Watchmen, and someone who has constantly opposed anyone else's attempts to use his material, his characters, or to continue his story from the original Watchmen comic series. And for good reason, because every time someone's tried to do it, it's been varying degrees of garbage, right? Like, probably the least garbage was Zack Snyder's movie. And then, you know, the before Watchmen comics and the after Watchmen comics that they're doing now have been just complete garbage. They've just been trash, right? And of course, the TV series has been the worst of all. It's just been, it's a travesty of what Watchmen ought to be. It takes a story that is full of nuanced elements where there is no black and white and literally turns it into a story about black versus white, right? So, like, my God. But anyway, so this Linda Hoff guy's afraid because he says Alan Moore has cursed him. He's convinced that Alan Moore has cursed him. And I thought that was very funny. And I got to this because I was thinking today about how, you know, you had massive failure of Charlie's Angels, the movie, massive failure of the new Terminator movie, massive failure of the Batwoman TV show. And I'd commented on Twitter, right, like how much more of this has got to happen before the big media companies realize that they've been had and realize that trying to make movies that appeal to the SJW population, which are only 8% of the general population and whom almost everyone else hates, is not going to work for them. It's not going to be profitable. Whereas a movie like Joker, which all the SJWs were telling them was terrible and that they shouldn't do and that they actually didn't fully invest in because of that, right? So now Warner literally didn't make as much money as it could have off of Joker because it brought in other investors. Because they were told that this would be a dangerous, weird incel movie that nobody would want to see and that it would be it would have bad, you know, press and somebody would shoot people up because of it and stuff like that. All the things that they said, right? None of that happened and Joker did $1 billion. I mean, I'm not even sure. It's quite possible that Joker was made for as not too much less than Batwoman was made. And it's made more, maybe, than all of the movies I just named put together, right? Like Terminator, Charlie's Angels, and then the Watchmen or the Batwoman TV series. And the thing is, Watchmen has even lower ratings than Batwoman, right? It's done worse than Batwoman, and people aren't talking about that. I don't know why. It has abysmally bad ratings, right? It's got like 700,000 people watch it, right? there are YouTube videos that more than 700,000 people watch, you know. So it's just stupid. But the thing that I found funny about this is that these are all people that want to impose these kind of moral judgments on us. And you have these guys like this Lindehoff guy. And Lindehoff, in this interview, the part that I found really interesting wasn't so much the magic. I wouldn't be surprised if Alan Moore did curse him. But he said it doesn't really matter, because it's like now it's just given him an excuse for why he feels miserable all the time, right? Because this guy, Lindehoff, admitted that he lives a life of constant misery and disappointment, right? Like he's not a happy person. And the thing is, almost none of these people are. None of the SJW crowd, if you look at them, are happy people. They're all living lives of constant misery. They're always depressed. They're always disappointed. They always feel like they're failures, right? They have they don't have any sense of anything positive in their lives. Oh, it's a cat. Even their cats probably don't make them happy. So like I've seen people talk about, the SJWs talk about me, right? And they attack me and stuff. And they say, oh, he's always insulting people and stuff, and he must be miserable. It's like, well, no, I have a spiritual purpose. I'm surrounded by my friends and people who love me. I have an incredibly fortunate life. I mean, I'm making a living. I'm one of a tiny handful of people making a living writing RPGs. There's nothing better than that. Anyone who actually knows me knows that I'm somebody who is very satisfied with how things are going for him. And so, but these people aren't. They're really fundamentally miserable, depressed people, right? And I think that the problem from this, where it emerged, because if you look at some of the people that advocate for something other than having, some kind of a collectivist solution to things, or for, the government to just fix all their problems or stuff like that. There are other people that, I'm not telling you that about people promising pie in the sky things. I'm telling you that there are people that suggest hard work, difficulty, overcoming obstacles, that this and the sense of accomplishment that it brings, that actually working for it, toughing it out, is what brings satisfaction in life, right? There's no satisfaction in life from forcing the world around you to change in order to give you the things you want, which is what the basic SJW model is. The wonder in life is found in looking at the world as it is and changing yourself, right? They don't want to change themselves. Like, that's the whole basis of SJW ideas is, if you're a woman, then you're already done. That's it. What's the hero's journey of a woman? She's a woman. What's the hero's journey of a black man? He's a black man. That's it, right? Their novels, their comics, their RPGs are based on the idea that identity is the only thing that matters. That you can't actually... Oh, it's Big Chungus. Look at this. They're both here today. Hey. Hello. Yeah. So that their identity is the only thing that's actually important. Okay? And I'm telling you, if your identity is the least important thing, that's where you can actually change your life. So anyways, the way that this relates to what I was going to talk about in RPGs today is that I think that all these people that pretend to be our moral betters and make these movies that then end up failing and then end up blaming us for their failure, and that are actually, they pretend to be our moral betters, but they're actually miserable all the time. So why would anyone listen to them as a guide for how to live, right? They're miserable, pathetic people, like this Lindehoff guy, right? Like, why would anyone want to hear his opinions about the world and how to be in it based on his Watchmen story, when actually he's a guy that admits that he's miserable about everything, right? And he's miserable about everything because he demanded immediate satisfaction rather than delayed satisfaction. And how does this apply to RPGs? Well, I've seen a phenomenon where some of these same types of people have pushed this idea on players, and on DMs rather, more than anything, on the game masters, that it is your job as the game master to entertain your players. That's not strictly true. It's your job to create an entertaining setting, but it's not your job to entertain your players. And it's not your job to make sure that there's constantly something exciting happening in the game. And if you do that, if your style of running the game is one where you're always creating the excitement, rather than creating the setup and the environment where that excitement can happen, what you end up doing is creating players that have basically an overload of sensory interaction that means that they don't have any chance to grow as characters. They don't have any chance to define themselves in that world. The world is just full of constant stuff that's happening, and oh my god, so random, right? Like there's always new activity that they know they won't even have to go look for, right? They just wait around and you're going to make something happen. That's not a good style of DMing, let me tell you. What you want is to create an environment, fill it with things, and then let the players sandbox around in there. Let them explore that world. Let them try to overcome themselves and triumph in some way, rather than you just fixing things for them, right? This is the same phenomenon, because otherwise your players are ultimately not going to be very satisfied with this world. It's a bit like the old Monty Hall subject. For those of you who don't know, the Monty Hall campaign is a campaign where a DM just throws magic items and tons of treasure out at the players all the time, right? And so they've got all super-powered armor and super-powered weapons and millions of gold pieces, and then they get really bored. Why? Because they haven't really done anything, right? They're always fighting a bigger monster and getting an even huger treasure. And in a way, a lot of campaigns are set up with that risk of being varying degrees of Monty Hall campaigns. But there's also a Monty Hall campaign of the spirit, to put it in a certain way, where if what you're doing as the DM is being responsible for things to happen in the world, and I know this might sound weird to some of you who are mostly, new school guys. The old school guys will understand what I'm talking about immediately, right? Especially once I mentioned sandboxes. A sandbox is a term from the old school where you treat your world like it was a sandbox. You have lots of different exciting things in the sandbox, and then let the players do their own thing. Okay? Wow, these cats are like all over the place today. I never make my cats be in my videos, as you can tell. Hey. Hey. Wow. All right. So, a sandbox means that the players are the ones in charge of exploring, and therefore in charge of generating their own fun. And you as the DM, what you do, you're not proactive, you're reactive, right? You're worried about what the NPCs are doing, what events are transpiring in the world beyond the players' actions. You let the players take charge of their own actions. You let them take charge of their own problems, of their own events, and how they're going to solve them, right? And then you just react to what's going on with them, so that they have to decide, do they want to go to the Caves of Chaos or to the Isle of Dread, or what do they want to do? And and you don't create like that suddenly ninjas appear or something like that just because you're worried they're going to get bored. And the problem is that a lot of players have gotten so used to that style of the DM constantly being the one that pushes them by the nose, and or more accurately, even more appropriately, brings things to them, right? They don't even have to get up. They're like Cartman sitting on the sofa. Mom, yeah, and I want some more cheesy poofs, right? And then Mom brings them the cheesy poofs, right? You can't do that. That's how you create a crippled player, right? And a spiritually crippled player. So instead, what you want to do is get them, make it clear to them that this is the way that you're going to try to run things. And maybe at the first, if all of your players are kind of used to the new school style of being led by the nose, you might have to cheat a little bit at first. You might have to wean them off it. You can't necessarily just go cold turkey. I know that sometimes it doesn't work to go cold turkey. I've had situations with players where they were told, well, you just decide what are you going to do, right? And they're like, well, I don't know, I wait until somebody gives me a mission or something like that, right? And they don't know what to happen. Or The other thing you got to worry about is to make sure that your setting has enough potential hooks, potential possibilities around, and for the players to have an idea of where to find them. But that's, you generate that by telling them what the setting is, right? So don't put them in the middle of an enormous forest where there's literally nothing around them, and then just tell them, well, guess, you know, go wherever you want, right? So like, and there might be, you know, a dungeon 70 miles away in one of those directions, and the other directions there's just more forest, right? That's going to be the recipe for a boring campaign, right? You have to give them stuff that they can choose to pursue, right? You want to give them the freedom of opportunity, right? Not of outcome. You don't guarantee the outcome for them. You just guarantee them the opportunity. This is a lot of lessons that we see playing out in the real world that also applies just as much in RPGs. So I think that's the basic message of it, right? Make sure that your players are able to develop, or if they've already been, you know, raised poorly on this, to redevelop or to rediscover their own ability to generate their own initiative. Because otherwise, even if you're not like, I'm not talking about promoting a political message like the Watchmen guy or the Charlie's Angels person did. But even if not, what you're still doing is you're creating an environment that promotes a lack of individual initiative in the players. And that this, for one thing, it's more work for you if you're a lazy kind of DM. And for a second thing, it's something that means that your world will never end up being as rich. And sometimes the new school people that want to teach you wrong on purpose have tried to make up for this by saying, well, the players should get to decide the world. That's even worse, because then they're literally Cartman on the couch asking for cheesy poofs, right? They're the ones that are deciding, oh, that what if there's this over here, and then there has to be that over here, right? That's where story gaming comes from. You don't want to do it that way. Instead, they should have absolute autonomy over their characters, and their characters should be able to move around the world and find out where they want to direct the campaign themselves, right? Now, there are some campaigns that will have a theme within that, so it varies. I'm not saying it has to be an absolute sandbox. You can also have a campaign where there's a certain theme. I don't know, your characters are all working on a caravan line, right, that goes across the distant kingdoms. Okay, fine, right? But even there, make sure that they decide, you know, how they're choosing to act in front of situations. What you never want is this kind of adventure path scenario where you're just dragging them from one set piece talk scene to another and then having them fight, as almost like if it was the old, you know, Doom video game or something like that. You don't want that. You want them, whatever the context is, whether you have a kind of a theme, you know, they're knights in the service of a lord, they're guys guarding a caravan, they're a group of superheroes protecting Central City, or whatever it is. That's all fine, but let them work out how they develop their protagonism in the game, because if you don't do that, then they're going to come out of this with this totally permissive this attitude of wanting immediate gratification that is actually going to serve the campaign very badly, right? This is all because of the boomers, obviously. It goes right back to you know, I'm okay, you're okay, and free to be you and me, and all of this bullshit that ended up wrecking an entire generation. But and yeah, it obviously wrecked this Lindehoff guy who did Watchmen, and he created a shitty show as a result of that. And I don't think Alan Moore really needed to curse him. He's already been cursed himself, you know, by his own inability to overcome the tragedy of his current culture. If he'd wake up and man up a bit, then that might be different. Anyway, that's it, I guess, for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Well, thank you to everybody who has been subscribing. And like the video, comment on the video, tell me what you think about either about gaming or about my comments on pop culture. And share the video anywhere that you think people will really like it, or people will be really annoyed by its presence. Either way is cool with me. Also, if you want to support me, I do have a Patreon page and a PayPal page, and you can feel free to drop money on either of those. But if you want to support me and get something back from it, then check out my products, right? Besides my big books like Dark Albion and Lion and Dragon and the soon-to-be-released OSR Medieval Authentic Companion, that noise you just heard, that was Big Chungus struggling to jump up from the microwave to the refrigerator. She's the least elegant cat in the world. Anyway, if you want to support me and get something back, besides my big books, you could also check out the RPG Pundit Presents PDF series, which is a set of now nearly 100 issues, each one dealing with different topics in medieval authentic or gonzo fantasy gaming, old school OSR gaming, but you can use most of the products there for pretty much any type of D&D or fantasy style role-playing. So, you know, take a look. The link is in the description. And the costs of these PDFs are between, I think, 99 cents and $4.99. They average about $2.99, I think. So it's, you know, about what you'd pay in a super chat or something like that. And it's a great way to send me a tip and for you to get something back from it that you can use in your role-playing. So be sure to check that out. And still, if you can't do any of that, you should still please share the video, because that can be of great help in building up the follower base. That's everything for today. I don't think there is going to be an inappropriate characters this week. So you never know. I might do a live stream on Sunday. We'll have to see. I can't promise anything, but keep your eyes open. That's why you have to subscribe. If you subscribe, you'll get notified. Well, if you hit the notification bell, you'll get notified when I'm about to do a live stream, and I'm not very good at coordinating those in advance. So that's everything for today. Currently smoking Lorenzetti Solitario Egg plus Gowith's Navy Flake.